I understand why people like Terrence Malick and enjoy his films, and I get that he is a very talented director and that he can display things in ways that other directors can't and would never even conceive of doing so. But I think that the problem I had with To the Wonder is that it just doesn't have a story. It doesn't have anything that connects any of the threads that are going through this movie. There's loads of themes floating around, but none of them are touched upon enough because there's no story to use to touch upon them. There's no way of understanding what Terrence Malick wants to say about religion or love or family or togetherness in this film, despite the fact that he is clearly trying to say something about all of these things. It's really hard to read. The film is really confusing, it's really long, and most of all, it's really boring. It's so slow that at times it just drifts off. The camera drifts away from what's actually happening, the characters you're supposed to be following, and just looks into the distance. And even when it's not looking into the distance at such beautifully framed images, it's looking at these main characters as if they're not important, as if they shouldn't be even in the frame, as if he's looking past them to things that we should be able to understand. But clearly, I didn't. And I think other people will be able to find such joy and enjoyment from this film and understand the themes that he's trying to portray and understand the messages in it. But I just couldn't. It's a film that's so wrapped in mystery, and it shouldn't be, because really it's a family drama. It's a drama about this couple who are struggling to stay together, who really shouldn't be together because not only are they a wrong fit for each other, but they're really a wrong fit for anyone. They're these very solitary characters who want to be alone. And Terrence Malick likes these kinds of characters, but he doesn't really do anything with them in this film. It's got these highbrow actors like Ben Affleck and Javier Bardem playing these very cut off, in their heads characters, and you want to know what's in their heads, but you can't. You can't understand anything that's happening in this film. It's really hard to interpret, and therefore it's a colossal waste of time if you don't get anything from it. In some regards, it's a lot like The Tree of Life, but that film had some semblance of. Actually, it did have quite a decent story. It was all encompassing. It was from one millennia to another, but it was very well constructed and quite clever. But it was also very broad. It didn't close down enough to analyze one specific thing, and I think that's a problem that both of these films have, is the fact that it tries to do so much that it ends up doing very little. And I think in To the Wonder, it does this so much that it does nothing. It's almost uninterpretable and almost unenjoyable because of that. And I think early Terrence Malick was so easy to read. It had story, it had character to it. And I think the problem with To the Wonder is the fact that these characters that you're following don't have characters. They say hardly any lines. In fact, I don't think Ben Affleck has one meaningful spoken line in the entire film. He has voiceovers, and all these characters have voiceovers. But these voiceovers sound like they're tripping on LSD, like they're thinking all these extemporaneous thoughts, and they really don't feel like characters. They feel like ways to convey random thoughts in Terrence Malick's head, and that should be no way to construct a film. And I think with Tree of Life, he had at least an idea of where he wanted these characters to end up. By the end of the film, you've got Ben Affleck and Olga Kurylenko, who are the two leads, in completely different places from where you'd expect them to be in a conventional film. And that's alright, it's a Terrence Malick film. They aren't supposed to be in the place you'd expect. That's why he's Terrence Malick. But they're in a place that's so completely stupid and so irritating that by the end of it you think, I watched this to sort of get some sort of visceral pleasure out of it, which you do to an extent because the direction is excellent, but you can't get any sort of quantitative enjoyment out of it because it's just so hard to understand. And it's just a shame, really, because with a better idea of where these characters were going to end up and what messages he wanted to get across, he'd be able to make a really well constructed film. And you can tell that he's cut so much from this film. You can tell that he has created a picture that is completely unlike the one he had in his head when he first started. So by the end of it, he's taken so much out, and he's spent so much time editing, that it's really hard to see where he's going and where it was going. And I think the end result is just something that's completely mangled. It's a wrong film. You can't tell which scenes are in the present, which are in the past. You can't tell if there's any time jumps. You can't tell anything about the film. You honestly cannot find anything from this film that will give you any kind of pleasure. It's a really unsatisfying taste in your mouth at the end of the film. It's as if you've just wasted 2 hours of your life. And it's a shame, really, because The Thin Red Line is fantastic, and I think his earlier films like Badlands, that's fantastic. But I think To the Wonder is by far his worst film, and the reason it's his worst film is because it's his most personal film, and I feel as though he got in his head too much. And because of that, I have to be quite cruel and give it a 1 out of 10.